Good evening, everyone. Welcome to American Advocates. This will be episode 91, as I took yesterday off for Mother's Day to spend time with my mom, my dad, etc., at their home where I grew up in. And we're back here today doing what I was going to do yesterday, which is going to be our top story a little bit later. That's going to be covering this Benjamin Netanyahu interview with 60 Minutes. A lot was revealed during that interview when it came to the discussions talked about. I want to cover a few clips of that and then use that, of course, to wean into the latest Iran war updates for the top story. But I also do want to cover a Democrat strategy that is now being discussed and revealed taking place out of Virginia after this Virginia State Supreme Court ruling came back that ruled against Abigail Spanberger's gerrymandering attempts in the state, where she wanted to take the what I would consider appropriately balanced and quite honestly whatchamacallit, evenly split state districting. What is six Democrats to 5 Republican congressional districts. She wanted to turn that into 10 Democrat districts and 1 Republican district, despite the fact that in Virginia, 46 to 48% of the total state votes Republican. This was shot down by the Virginia State Supreme Court. Now the Democrats are furious. They were furious. I reported on this channel when it took place and figured that would be the end of it. But the Democrats aren't being hesitant to reveal what is very likely their plan in 2028. If and when they retake control of this country, they're going to be trying to enact this plan on more of a microcosm type level in the state of Virginia. And I want to just reveal that and discuss that just a little bit and how the Democrats are playing to win. So that's what we're going to get into first, and then we'll get into Benjamin Netanyahu's interview with 60 Minutes. But before I do that, I've got to stop everything because I noticed that there was a $2 super chat tariff from BeckFan to kick off the show before I even went live. So thank you for that, BeckFan. Really appreciate that. That balances out the chat deficit early on for me, which I appreciate. And also, of course, the chat deficit might not get too bad tonight, just because I took Mother's Day off yesterday. I didn't go live, and I'll very likely be punished by YouTube for that, because I am goyim scum to YouTube. I am nothing but cattle to them. I must produce content every single day. As you can probably tell by my voice, I am still a little sick. I caught a cold, a summer cold, which turns out I caught it from my mom. I found that out on Mother's Day. I went and saw her. And I saw her last week. She had a cold. I saw her for Mother's Day. She told me she was sick last week. Now I'm sick. This is why. And, doesn't matter. Sick, Mother's Day. I shouldn't have taken the day off, and I will no doubt be punished for it by YouTube. So please, to help me overcome the mighty YouTube suppressive algorithm, we are at war. There's an Iran war going on right now, but we here on this channel, you American advocates with me, are at war with me against the YouTube algorithm. Help me fight it by liking the stream right now. Just double tap those phone screens. That's free to do. It doesn't even require a $2 super chat tariff like BeckFan gave me to help me do better in the algorithm. Like the stream, it's free. And of course, subscribe to American Advocates so you're notified every time I go live. What's up, Steve OD? Just want to say hi to everyone before we get into this. MMMM, good to see you here, man. Good to see you, Lifeguard. Spartacus, thanks for being here. Jonathan Bray, glad to see you in the chat as well. And your Bitcoin has doubled, Roba. Yes, Bitcoin. This is not a financial channel, but I will say I expect Bitcoin actually, not that I would ever hold out on Bitcoin long term. I think it's way too volatile. But Bitcoin, I actually think might have a phenomenal year this year, along with gold and silver and copper, actually. So there's your little bit of financial advice, though I am not a financial advisor. I'm not responsible for any poor investments you make whatsoever. Anyways, let's get into this. So first, just a brief segment here before we get into Benjamin Netanyahu's ridiculous speech with 60 Minutes, where he definitely revealed the future, in my opinion, on what's going to be taking place in Iran and the Middle East for both the United States and Israel. I want to cover this news article that came up today. This is courtesy of CBS News. And again, this has to deal with the Virginia state redistricting gerrymandering efforts from Governor Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat governor there, who was, like I said, trying to redistrict the state of Virginia to produce 10 districts for Democrats and 1 district for Republicans, despite the fact that the state is pretty evenly split amongst voters, with 46 to 48% of Republicans, of voters in Virginia voting Republican, and it's already a 5 district Republican state and a 6 district Democrat state. So it is split evenly. Abigail Spanberger, of course, was trying to do this in an attempt to battle with Texas and their redistricting efforts, where Governor Greg Abbott approved a mid-decade redistricting that is permitted in Texas state's constitution to do so, and has now squeezed out 5 additional Democrat seats. But ultimately, the Virginia State Supreme Court struck this down and destroyed Abigail Spanberger's efforts to gerrymander her state in favor of Democrats, and cited that it was against the state constitution to do so, essentially. Called it basically not illegal, but not allowed. And the Democrats are furious about this. So this article came out, and it says, this, by the way, though I don't agree with it as a conservative, I am going over this because I want to point out something important for everyone to understand. This is going to be me essentially kind of shitting on Democrats a little bit because I am a conservative, but also giving them their dues, and I'm going to explain why. This article says, proposal, drop Virginia State Supreme Court retirement age from age 73 down to age 54. And so because the Democrats didn't like the ruling of their state Supreme Court, they are now insidiously going to try to get something passed that will force many of the Supreme Court judges out of the bench, as they will now be deemed too old if this manages to go through. This is actually a very short article, but it says everything you need to know. It says, Democrat lawmakers discussed lowering the mandatory retirement age, mandatory keyword, for Virginia State Supreme Court justices after last week's ruling struck down Virginia's congressional redistricting amendment. The discussions reached U.S. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who's a Democrat from New York, during a private Saturday call involving members of Virginia's congressional delegation, according to reporting of the New York Times. The proposal involves lowering the mandatory retirement age for Virginia State Supreme Court justices down from age 73 to age 54. All 7 justices sitting on the bench today are older than 54. There's also reported legal discussion related to the Tazewell County Circuit Court ruling in January. Virginia Senate Majority Leader Scott Survell later distanced himself from the proposal, telling Virginia Scope on Monday that the idea was not happening, citing election timeline restrictions and calling forced judicial retirement extreme. The court ruled 4-3 last week to invalidate the amendment hastily rushed before voters on April 21st, with litigation to its merit ongoing. Voters approved a statewide referendum that would put a new congressional district map into play in November and potentially flip 4 seats from Republican to Democrat. And that is the thing. The Virginia state voters did approve narrowly in favor. They voted in favor of Abigail Spanberger's not technical legislation, but she was trying to propose an amendment to the Virginia state constitution in order to do this. And they did vote technically in favor in a slim margin, 52 to 48%. But the state Supreme Court overruled it, despite the fact that it received slim majority favor from the voters, and said it's just not constitutional, can't do it. So now we are seeing what the Democrat strategy really is. And this is not anything that you should be unaware of at this point in time. The article even goes on to say Virginia lawmakers are not subject to a mandatory retirement age, which is true, but they're trying to impose it on the court now because they're displeased with the ruling. It says the retirement age was actually raised from age 70 to 73 under legislation approved in 2015. A proposal to raise the further to 75 failed during the 2022 legislative session. Now, I actually, weirdly enough, had just done a little bit of a topic, covered a little bit on age limits for our politicians. I'm mostly in favor of that. I actually did say, however, when it came to court justices, that was perhaps the one area of our government where I would make an exception, because I like the idea of justices holding on to, there's like this little faction then that you have in our government that would be old school, and that could be useful. I think largely we don't want our president over the age of 60, in my opinion. We don't want congressmen and congresswomen over the age of 60. Those are our lawmakers, senators, House, etc. We want age limits on these people. They're far too old and they don't belong in politics. They belong in retirement. And certainly same with the president. So that's important. I did say, actually, though, in that episode, this was probably a week or two ago, that for the Supreme Court, I'd be willing to make the exception, as it can be refreshing to have people who are deemed with upholding morality in this country to be a little on the older side with the gray hair. That's perhaps the one area of life where you do want the gray hair involved. You want people who are still more in touch with the way things were, because most people will tell you that America was a better place 40 or 50 years ago. And in some regard, they're probably correct about that. And so that's the notion that I've shared on that when it comes to this. So the Democrats have revealed that they want the age limits on the courts so that they can bypass this now and move forward. Not that it's already too late, by the way. The gerrymandering's been struck down. It is too late now, but this is just pure retaliation from the Democrats now, and it's somewhat effective, and it's very interesting. And truthfully, beyond the age limits, they're also talking about packing the state Supreme Court. And this is another strategy that we've heard the Democrats discuss semi-openly, in all honesty, when it came to the Supreme Court of the United States. Because this is a Supreme Court, of course, where most justices just die before they get replaced. They live their entire life, or the vast majority of their life, or however long they're appointed on, and they're not replaced until they're dead. And the Democrats don't like that because obviously the majority of the Supreme Court for the United States country as a whole is Republican. And though we've seen them vote against Trump on several issues and against Republicans over the years on several issues, the fact that they're Republican does mean they defy Democrats quite a bit as well. So stop everything real fast, though. We have one sheepish wolf with a $5 super chat tariff. I appreciate that a lot. Man, you're becoming a good supporter on this channel, by the way, which I really appreciate. And he says, have we won the war, ceased fire, or are we back at square one again? I'm going to go over that in a minute, Sheepish Wolf. I'm going to cover the Benjamin Netanyahu 60 Minutes interview, as well as get into the latest updates on that war. I'm just doing a real quick domestic issue here, as I am a social conservative, after all. And I'm kind of shitting on Democrats, but I'm also, like I said, I'm going to give them their dues in a minute here, because I got to say something when it comes to this, their strategy and everything. So I'm just covering that real quick, dealing with Virginia State. But thank you for the $5 super chat tariff to help balance out the chat deficit, which I really appreciate. So, excuse me. So they're talking about packing their state Supreme Court, and at the national level, we've heard Democrats talk about this strategy as well. Now, this is a startling strategy, and ultimately it would be a strategy that erodes our democracy even more. And there's just no getting around that. This is like exploiting either a loophole or creating your own loophole that you can then use and exploit to get your way. And really, it's a Pandora's box. It's a genie out of the bottle, because the fact of the matter is, if the Democrats ever got power and did it, you would then have to either conclude that the Democrats will never lose power then, or the second that do, that the Republicans would do the same thing. And then you have to ask yourself, at what point does it end then? If Democrats pack the court with 3 additional justices that are Democrat, or 5 even they've talked about, well, then what happens then? Well, if Republicans ever gain power, they're going to do the same thing and pack the court with 3 or 5 or even 7 to override what the Democrats did. And next thing you know, you have a Supreme Court with like 23 different judges, or 25 total judges, and then it's just madness. So the honesty here is, the honest truth about all of this is it would erode our democracy. It is an insidious strategy from the Democrats, and not shocking that they're trying it, because they are a disgusting party, after all, with very little to go off of when it comes to a moral compass. But I will say this, and here's the brutal truth for Republicans on this. The Democrats play to win. And that's why I admire them from a carnal human standpoint, from somebody who wants to win, like myself, and who's sick of a spineless, pussified, feminized GOP that continues to insist on playing by the rules and playing off of their principles rather than playing to win, while our country, the sake of our country, truthfully, is on the line, right? And American voters have felt this now for, I would say, the past 2 elections at least. And certainly the theme of 2028's election is going to be the same as what we saw for 2024's election, where the fate of the country's on the line. This election will be the biggest election. We'll hear it in 2028 like we heard it in 2024, like we heard it in 2021, or 2020, I should say, and like we heard it in 2016, really, as almost where that notion began. And so it's only going to ramp up, and the parties are only going to split apart more, in all honesty, and become more extreme. While many people will say, of course, that there is one unifying cause that both parties seem to be growing in enlightenment over, and that is, of course, the Israel slash foreign influence slash big donor money in our politics that are affecting our politicians. At the end of the day, the morality difference, the differences in morality between the two parties are so extreme and becoming ever more extreme that there's going to be no unification. Perhaps a slight temporary alliance with parties, maybe after this 2026 midterm election season, when Democrats very likely stomp out the GOP and utterly crush them because of the poor result of this Iran war and the increased cost of living as a result. Maybe there's some form of temporary alliance, which is why, in fact, I actually want the Democrats to win the midterms this year, even as a social and fiscal conservative, because this Trump administration is completely out of control, off the rails, unstoppable in the worst ways. We wanted Trump to be unstoppable in the best ways. We were excited about the idea as conservatives of a red Congress, a red Senate, red House, red Supreme Court, and a red executive. This was supposed to mean that everything could be done unrestricted, or as unrestricted as possible, for the betterment of America and the American people. And all we've gotten instead, probably because of this fuckface, is another foreign war where we are now spending billions of dollars, billions with a B, and down the line it's going to cost Americans even more money than that. I did some quick math as somebody who actually drives, semi drives for a living. So I fill up my gas on a daily basis. And because of this war and the gas prices that are rising right now, I am now spending an additional $110 to $120 a month because of this fucking war. So I am not only devastated at the complete betrayal from the conservatives and GOP on this issue, but also outraged and full of spite. And I am the wrong motherfucker when it comes to this as a voter to tolerate this. Many of these old school Republican voters, or many of these Republican voters in general, will tell you you must toe the party line because the alternative is worse. But at this point, I am so spiteful, I am so fucking full of hatred with a black heart that I am just willing, and honestly, at this point, eager to watch this Republican Party crumble. I want to see it fall. I want to see it devastated, and I want to see Democrats take control of the House and likely the Senate even at this point, and prosecute all of the Republicans who have failed us, born out of weakness and sheer just neglect of their own constituents and voter base, and instead just prioritizing once again every other foreign interest and country and their citizens of those countries over us. I want to watch them suffer politically. I don't care if it comes from lawfare. I don't care where it comes from. I want to see the Republicans be annihilated at this point overall for their failures. I am that much of a hateful person, and I despise weakness above all else. And that's really what this GOP party is plagued with. It's plagued with weakness. You want to know what strength is, by the way? I hate to say this, but it is true. Strength is never stopping. Always pushing towards your goals. The Democrats just failed in Virginia with Governor Spanberger's plan to gerrymander, egregiously gerrymander, by the way. Not fair at all. And this is how the game is played, but not fair at all. They wanted 10 Democrat districts out of 11 total in a state with 48% of the people there voting Republican. The state's already well balanced, and the Democrats looked at it and they said, fuck that, we don't care. We want to win, bitch. We don't care about balance. We don't care about fairness. We want to win future elections. So we'll just remove four additional districts, and we'll lopside it all we want. We don't give a shit. And they tried to amend their own state constitution to get it done. That's what it looks like to play to win. Now, they failed because of the morality of it being upheld by their own state Supreme Court. But does it end there? No, not when you're a Democrat and you're hell-bent on winning. The Democrats not only are hell-bent on winning, but they're thinking towards the future. And they're thinking towards winning future elections. They may have failed here. The midterms are already a failure for them in some regard because they didn't get this amendment passed to their state constitution. But what are they doing? Well, now they're going to punish those who stood in their way. And they're going to ensure, or do their best at least, to ensure that the strategy can be utilized again at some point in the future. And they're going to punish those who ruled against them on the court by very likely trying to pass something now that will just wipe the Virginia State Supreme Court could be wiped out if this passes. An age restriction. It said in the article every current Virginia State Supreme Court justice is over the age of 54, and now these Virginia lawmakers and Democrats want to impose this rule where they have to retire in mandatory fashion at age 54. This would wipe out the entire Virginia State Supreme Court, and then you could appoint 7 new Democrat justices to the bench in order to get your way on anything else Spanberger wants to pass in the future. And Spanberger ran as a moderate, but it was deception. She's an extremist, liberal, progressive candidate, without a doubt. She's anti-Second Amendment. She's anti almost everything conservative and very far left. And she's making a move now that will allow in the future, if it works, to pass all of that extreme legislation pretty much unchallenged as governor of Virginia. This is what it looks like to win. And this is the difference between the GOP, who are little pansy-ass pussy men, no doubt, without a doubt. I think of the stereotype being a Mike Johnson right now. Mike Johnson just has that kind of a soft little face to him. Doesn't look like he had anything done. No spine whatsoever. I'm a Christian. Yeah, you're a westernized, feminized Christian little bitch. That's what Mike Johnson is. And that's what most Republicans are, or at least masquerade as. And that's really the problem with the party right now. Like I said, we were looking forward to a red executive, a red Senate, a red House, and a red Supreme Court. And what have we gotten for it? Fucking nothing. Absolutely nothing. A bunch of half-assery, right? Half-assery. I've gone over all of it. No deep state arrests. Doge was in effect for 2 months. Half the Epstein files only. No Greenland. Cost of living increase. What else did Trump campaign on? He even started walking back on his transgender notion, where now if a child under 18 wanted to go that route, he had indicated that they were going to pass some sort of legislation where the child was prohibited from getting transgender mutilation surgery, essentially chopping off his penis. But however, if he got his parents' approval, well, then maybe it's all good after all. Everything Trump stood for prior to getting voted in, he's walked back, and the GOP has been completely complicit as we watch the Senate refuse to nuke the Democrat filibuster to reopen the government, which they finally sorted out after a record-length partial government shutdown, the second of its kind, by the way. This GOP is so completely ineffective. Yeah, the border wall. Thank you, Lifeguard. Lifeguard, I know you don't even, yeah, Dearborn, Michigan, not even addressed, nor is Dallas, Texas being addressed. I have a whole playlist on this channel devoted to Dearborn, Michigan. It's a massive problem. Mass deportations aren't even really happening anymore either. It's all been half-assed at best. And in some cases, we've barely gotten a quarter percentage, 25% or less. And in some cases, we've gotten nothing. And then in one case, we got 100% of what we didn't want. Another fucking foreign war, which I'm going to get to as the top story in just a minute here, kicking it off with Benjamin Netanyahu's 60-minute interview and then giving you guys the latest updates on the region. But do the Republicans play to win? They won't nuke the filibuster. They passed what, 84? I think they passed 84 laws last year. That is a record low in modern American history. And they say, well, we passed a big, beautiful bill. That's really like 10 or 15 bills in one. That big, beautiful bill, it has a few good things in it, but a lot of pork fat, a lot of bullshit, and it still doesn't make up for the fact that this was the laziest Congress I've ever lived through, in my opinion, last year, and still, of course, in session right now. It really is almost as if the Republicans are desperate to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory because, I don't know, maybe they get off more on being the losing end. Maybe they get off more on being the weaker party. Maybe they just like being the weaker party not in power so they can sell their votes to Democrats. I have that theory going on. I think a lot of them probably do that too. I'm not really sure. But honestly, the Republican Party is full of weakness and probably corruption, well, definitely, and fraud, and everything else that's bad. And it needs to be washed away and redone. And that's why I'm excited to watch the midterms go blue. even as a social and fiscal conservative. I don't want blue in 2028, obviously. I think if a Democrat president gets voted in, this country's pretty much done. But what? I'm willing to take that risk at this point. I really don't give a shit. Just give me the end worst result now rather than us somehow managing to maintain a GOP executive for the next 8, 12, 16 years and slowly get our way there anyway. Let's just get to the worst now and see if there's anything we can do about it. That's my mindset on it. I'm fucking done. I really am just done with this current GOP. And there's only a few good candidates out there that I would ever consider voting for. And unfortunately, a lot of them obviously aren't even in my home state, so I can't vote for them, but only can speak my support of them. So that's really where we're at on that. But I just want to say that, it reminds me of a movie. Funny enough, I only just recently watched. What's that movie called? It was in like 2009. Oh, I can't remember it, but the quote is so good out of it. And I'd never seen it. No Country for Old Men, I think is what it's called. And YouTube had recommended it to me just a few months ago, and I thought, hell, I know millennials for some reason love this movie. I don't know why. Let's check it out. I thought it was a bizarre movie overall, but I rewatched it a second time and I understand it a little bit better. And in the movie, he sits down from this guy he's about to kill, who's a DEA agent, I believe. And he basically, before he's about to kill him, he says basically, if your rules got you to this point where I'm about to kill you, your life's coming to an end now. If your rules that you play by, the DEA agent who's bound by the system essentially, if your rules got you to this point, of what use was your rule? And that really is the question that the GOP should start asking themselves, because they're a bunch of fucking pussies. And they're going to lose a lot of support, especially from young men who are spiteful, hateful, and above all else, full of righteous indignation and anger towards the system, and a bunch of young men who honestly placed a lot of hope in the GOP party in 2023 and 2024 when it came to upholding and fixing society. There's a reason why a lot of Gen Z men are more conservative, whereas the women, of course, aren't. But the men are becoming more conservative in a lot of ways, and very far-right conservative. And it's because they recognize the social issues plaguing our country. And they recognize that ideally, at least, it was supposed to be the right wing that conserves it. Of course, you look back and you realize they didn't conserve anything, and deliberately, actually, they slowly allowed it to be eroded. Again, probably for profit. But there's supposed to be this idea, and now there's just going to be, they're faced with the reality of it, and that is that neither side really represents the American people anymore. But at least the Democrats play to win. Whatever their agenda may be, however bad it may be for the long run of America domestically, at least the Democrats play to win. And the Republicans, they can't even do that. They only play to enrich their own selves and their own pockets. It's disgusting, and they don't deserve our support. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, just a little bit of a rant, because it's and anybody most people in the 99.9% of this chat have never met me in person, but I do have a few viewers who know me in person. They know that these have been my thoughts now. A lot of them watch the replay. I mean, I was saying this stuff when Biden was in. I'll be honest with you, when Biden was in, I told my one friend we were as soon as Biden got elected, we went out and bought a bunch of guns. Well, I did specifically. I went out and bought a gun, and ammo was already running low, and my friend was worrying about it, and he said, "Oh, this sucks, honestly." After I bought my gun, I said we were talking. He said, "This sucks." I said, "You know what? America needs this. America needs to suffer more. That really actually is the problem, because you change only comes when you have decided you will no longer tolerate something." And so the truth of the matter is, and I'll wrap it up by saying this, and then we'll move on to Benjamin Netanyahu's speech or interview on 60 Minutes. I'll wrap it up by saying this. The American people are tolerating all of this, and therefore they deserve everything bad coming our way. That means myself included, all of us. The truth of the matter is that our founding fathers, if you look back on the history of the foundation of this country, tolerated nothing. They put up a fight at every corner for every little thing they disliked. And now people feel, the problem is really people still feel like they have just enough in their possession that they don't want to lose, that keeps them from doing what is necessary to effect true change in this country. But as a result of that, in all honesty, they therefore deserve to lose everything. And I actually think that that's going to be a scenario for most people. I think most people are going to find themselves in a position as the wealth classes continue to divide. Whereas we're watching the rich continue to get richer. This happened with Biden. It's happening with Trump now, by the way. One of the key markers of this, which is not 100% indicative, but usually is. Certainly it was under Biden and definitely is under Trump right now. Inflation's going up while the stock market goes up. That literally means we're spending more money as the poor people or middle class people. And that money is going somewhere. It's going right into the hands of the rich. That's why the stock market's improving. The rich are investing their money and making even more, while the poor people are having to spend more just to survive. This is not going to go away, especially with our national debt about to hit 40 trillion. It's creating a massive bubble, and when that pops, all of it's gone pretty much overnight. And all of you in chat are all of a sudden very, very poor. Just like 1920s Germany, you are going to be so poor, you won't be able to afford everything. And only when you've lost everything will you then probably feel motivated enough to actually do something about it. Of course, it'll probably be too late by then, and many people will die. But this is just the reality of how life works. So I just wanted to say that in all honesty. The fact of the matter is, as crude as it may sound to say this, and as calloused as it sounds to say this, we deserve the suffering we have coming our way for being so lazy and complacent when it comes to how our country is run and whom it's run by. So that's my message to you. I know that's a bit of a doomer message right there. I actually don't practice or preach doomerism or taking the black pill. I do believe we can save this country, but the way the trends look right now and the way it seems right now when it comes to our society is, in all honesty, most people don't really want to do what is necessary to get that change coming, and that's the bottom line. So we'll move on, though. Stop everything before we move on. One Sheepish Wolf with a $5 super chat tariff, the second one from you. And did I see one from Beck Fan as well? Hang on, I don't want to miss another Beck Fan one. Yeah. Yes, let me get, hang on, Sheepish Wolf. I was in the middle of my rant, but I need to stop everything for Beck Fan's second $2 super chat tariff. And he says, why would you even have districts at that point? Yeah, if it goes 10-1, really, it really is just to say that the Republicans are still represented. And if you look at the district lines, the one district where Republicans were going to maintain their representation in Virginia under Spanberger's gerrymandering efforts was going to be the largest district of Virginia. So it was like 33, like 32, 33% of the entire state. But the district, there's like 10 littler districts that all have a massive impact, of course, on the state and on elections. And those she wanted to turn all blue. But yeah, that's a fair question to ask. And then we'll move on right here to One Sheepish Wolf's $2 or $5 super chat tariff, his second one of the show. I really appreciate that, by the way. And he says, I don't know if you know this, but domestically I'm on the left. We say exactly the same stuff about Democrats that you say about Republicans to a T. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I hope spending money on a channel that you like super disagree with and will wind up hating. That would actually make me feel a little guilty, to be honest with you. But I could appreciate the perspective, and it's not that I don't want unity completely. Here's what I'll say. I don't want complete unity, but it's not that I don't want the parties to be closer together, because if you go back in time far enough, the Democrats and Republicans agreed on, I would say, about 80% of issues. And I've noticed this. You go back and watch any of the old presidential debates, like I just did, for instance, who was it? Nixon versus Kennedy. I rewatched that one recently, and you can go back further, and you can go back even sooner than that, quite honestly, even into the 90s and early 2000s. And they said a lot of same stuff, and they gave each other props on good talking points. It was a lot more harmonious. I believe there's a big moral divide when it comes to the Democrats and Republicans, and that's really going to be perhaps one of the biggest issues. It's a lot of social issues, because progressivism, in my opinion, has just made the party way too far left, to the point where it has isolated a lot of moderate Democrats. So I don't know if unity is possible for that reason, and I don't really want unity for that reason. However, if we could ever find ourselves back in a position, and it might take a miracle at this point, back in a position where the debates look more like the 1960s, the 1960 presidential debates, I would be a lot happier with that. And I think a lot more Americans would have a greater peace of mind if both sides were attempting to put America first and just disagreeing on the 20% that goes into that, which was somewhat social back then and actually largely fiscal. That would be much better. I don't know if we could ever get back. There's been so much that's gone into this creating this social divide with Americans, and a lot of it's been a psyop, very blatantly so. And you really have to understand the history of that to know what I'm saying, but hopefully you do. Another $2 super chat tariff from Michael Cox, 6654. Thank you, man. He says nothing, just wants to support the show, which I really appreciate. Thank you so much. And then a third $2 super chat tariff from Beck Fan, and he says results in Britain are very heartening. Yes, if you are a conservative, the results in Britain right now are pretty. It's a white pill for sure. There's a few white pills rising up in America as well. I always point out James Fishback, who some people are saying they have doubts on now, but I overall like them. And so there are some white pills when it comes to that. I would even say this. There was one white pill that I saw. It was obscure news. It was an obscure news story for the Democrat Party, actually. Something to the effect of 40 Democrats have now united, and they have drafted something that they're going to present to the president that will force him to acknowledge the fact that Israel is a nuclear nation, and then they want a direct answer from the president on how many nukes Israel possesses as a country. That's another white pill, even if it is coming from Democrats. All right, let's move on though. So I wanted to cover this 60 Minutes interview with Benjamin Netanyahu here, because we are now getting into the Iran war situation once again, which is not over with, and in all honesty, it's actually beginning to look like it's going to get worse before it gets better. And if you really want to know the direction that the Iran war is heading, don't listen to President Donald Trump, and don't listen to Iran actually even. Because both Trump and Iran are releasing a lot of propaganda, which I've of course done my best to break through those narratives on this channel and give you guys an analysis that I pride myself on being mostly accurate. My predictions have been at least somewhat accurate. I've predicted ceasefire extensions. I've predicted escalations before they've happened on this channel, which is again why you should like the show right now. Double tap those phone screens. It's free to do. Helps the show perform better in YouTube's algorithm. Also subscribe to American Advocates as well for more content like this. But yeah, if you really want to know where this is all heading, then I pointed out how Trump shares Mark Levin. That sometimes can actually, unfortunately, be a good indicator if you can suffer through listening to Mark Levin, that is. But Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, many people are suspecting the obvious when it comes to him and his involvement in this war. And a lot of that a lot of that suspicion, I think, is confirmed as a result of this 60 Minutes interview, of which I'm going to play several clips for you guys to and give my thoughts on them. And he reveals a lot here. So the 60 Minutes clip starts off with him essentially saying the war is not over yet. You can take a listen to that right here. I'll play that right now.
Is the war with Iran over? And if it isn't, who will decide when it is?
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium, that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There's still proxies that Iran supports. There are ballistic missiles that they still want to produce. Now, we've degraded a lot of it, but all of that is still there.
So first and foremost, the war is not over, he says. He says, right now, he's the Prime Minister of Israel, a country that is almost totally dependent on the United States for both its defense, for its economy, basically, and all of its supplies. So you would think that he really wouldn't be able to sit there and, say that as the Prime Minister of Israel. You'd think he'd sit there and say, well, I don't know. I'd have to ask President Donald Trump on that, since he's the president of America who's at war with Iran, and the IDF is not really involved in any major way. Only a few of our Mossad agents have been operating within Iran in the region in the form of sabotage and stealth. And so because of our lack of involvement and our lack of proactivity in the region, it really is up to Mr. President Donald Trump, not me. You would think that's what a self-aware leader would say, and or a leader who didn't feel like he was in charge of the situation. But he just said, no, it's not over. And he didn't say, well, it's very likely not over, or no, President Trump said it's not over, or no, I don't think Trump thinks it's over. He said, no, it's not over. And that's firm. And that's it. That's it. It's literally just not over, right? So that's first and foremost. Then he goes on to state the reasons why it's not over. Of course, citing the enriched uranium, the centrifuges, the nuclear facility program, all of which is still in Iran and not completely destroyed, which is the opposite of what we were told after Operation Midnight Hammer last summer, almost a year ago now, in fact, from Trump and his administration. So that's the first thing to understand here, and that's my first reaction to that right off the bat. This Benjamin Netanyahu shouldn't be the guy telling us it's not over, but he is, and he's saying it in an unchallenged manner, without any deference to America or Trump, and he stated the reasons why. Now, the reasons why that he says it's not over also make you think, because the enriched uranium, that's in the middle of Iran. So are their nuclear facilities in the middle of Iran, destroyed, buried under rubble from the explosions from the bunker buster bombs, and would take some serious effort to get out of Iran. What does that mean? Well, if he's saying it's not over because they still hold on to that, the next logical conclusion, which he ultimately arrives at, I'm going to play the second clip in a second, is you have to get it. You have to retrieve it. You must go in and retrieve the enriched uranium and knock out their centrifuges and everything else and finish destroying the facility so Iran can't come up with a nuke for decades to come. And what does that mean? That means boots on the ground, because you obviously cannot retrieve enriched uranium courtesy of any other method. You can't go in from the air and retrieve it, nor can you retrieve it from the sea, especially because obviously it's in the middle of Iran. So our typical methods of dealing with Iran thus far, using our most powerful navy in the world and our dominant air force, are not going to work for future goals, it would seem. And that's alarming. Now, how will this hold up with MAGA? Well, let's answer that question in a second. But first, let's play the next segment here.
Hours before we sat down with the Prime.
Oh, hang on. There we go.
And there's work to be done.
How do you envision the highly enriched uranium will be removed from Iran?
You go in and you take it out.
With what?
There you
Special
go.
forces from Israel, special forces from the United States?
Well, I'm not going to talk about military means, but what President Trump has said to me, I want to go in there. And I think it can be done physically. That's not the problem. If you have an agreement and you go in and you take it out, why not? That's the best way.
All right, so this is how he proposes we deal with this. How do you get the enriched uranium? Well, you go in and take it out. Who's you, by the way? Who's going to go in and take that out? And I liked at least the interviewer. This was a very softball interview from 60 Minutes. At least he asked the question, because we all know what the reality is when it comes to who you is. Who's you go in and take it out? Is that Israel and the IDF? No. Notice how... And this whole interview was done to sell this war to Americans, by the way, who are continually supporting Israel less and less. Israel's support with America continues to decline at record rates. And so Netanyahu's aware of this. He's here to sell this war to us the best that he can. And when he says you, he's talking at us and to us, Americans. That involves our military and President Trump, too. So you is us. And we know this. Excuse me. Because though the IDF does get involved in military action, they only get involved at military action near or around Israel, or when Israel is invading countries that they deem are at a point that they can capture and begin expanding into. So with Gaza and now with South Lebanon, courtesy of this war, the IDF soldiers are in. And Israel, to their credit, is a very nationalistic country. They don't like the idea of losing any of their soldiers' lives, and so their strategies are actually diabolical. They will just airstrike everything in a designated area, regardless of whether or not it's civilian or military. They'll tell you it's all military, because they'll tell you, well, Hamas hides in the houses, in the civilian houses and apartments and hotels, and Hezbollah does the same thing, apparently. So they just bomb city blocks, and they'll bomb several city blocks at once, courtesy of the airstrikes. And then they send the IDF soldiers in afterwards to clean up the mess, basically, finish off anything and comb through it. This preserves more of their soldiers' lives, who ultimately comb through it. And then you see the construction equipment come in. Israel has a lot of construction equipment, backhoes, dump trucks, etc., because they go down and they go in and they finish knocking down all of the civilians' homes and apartment buildings so that they can flatten out the region and prepare it for Israel occupation, in which they will never retreat from. It is now permanently their land. This is not a new strategy. Most people are not aware of this, of course, because a lot of boomers who still support Israel only watch Fox News, which is of course run by Rupert Murdoch, who's so Israel friendly that he actually contributed to 5 prior Benjamin Netanyahu campaigns in the past, contributing millions of dollars to each one. So they don't report on this. They don't show you the videos, but they're up. They're up on all over on social media if you know where to look, and you'll see this tactic played out. Furthermore, as a result of this, the IDF soldiers are occupied then with Gaza, the West Banks, and South Lebanon. They're busy advancing the Israeli government's agenda in achieving Greater Israel, which means they do not help the United States armed forces when it comes to Iran currently. We will not see that. In the past already, about 7 or 8 weeks ago, actually, the talks about ground force invasion were becoming a little bit more prominent. The idea was being floated around. And Israel's news source, I did an episode live when this took place, and I covered it then. Israel's news, their direct news stations, were reporting that no, the IDF would not go into Iran under any circumstances. And this is not something that is new if you're paying attention to history. We have the 2003 Iraq War, and a lot of shades of what's going on now with Iran are reminiscent of the 2003 Iraq War, in which we spent $6 to $8 trillion of our own money going into debt for that war, which was useless. And we lost something to the effect of 3,000 to 4,000 of our United Armed Forces servicemen's lives in the process of fighting that stupid, useless war. How many IDF soldiers' lives were lost in that war? 0. And so this is all done because, of course, they're nationalists, and they believe also that they are the superior race. And so it is the Goyim's job to fight their battles for them. Anytime they can convince Americans to fight their wars for them is a major win for them in the name of preservation of their own lives. And they will tell you this. And many Israel supporters, even who live in America and aren't Jewish, will echo these sentiments, not even fully really grasping what it means to say it. But they'll say, well, it makes sense that they wouldn't send the IDF in to join our armed forces, because for every one IDF soldier's lives lost, that's the equivalent of 100 American soldiers' lives. And they'll say this, and it'll go over their head what that actually means. They won't even fully grasp or contemplate what it means to say that. But in doing so, in saying it, they acknowledge that they themselves have bought into the propaganda that the current Jews occupying what was formerly Palestine and is now Israel as of 1948 are a superior race who do not deserve to die, really. And it should be us who die, because one of their lives equal 100 of ours. And so that's how they operate. And it's not surprising that he would say you and then not get into it. When the interviewer asks him, well, who's that? Is it the IDF? Is it the U.S. Armed Special Forces? He says, well, I won't get into it. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to. First of all, it's not wise for him to, because he shouldn't say this quiet part out loud like I just did. But secondly, there are increasingly more and more of us who understand the quiet part, and we're now saying it out loud anyway. He would later go on to acknowledge the fact, actually, that social media is the biggest contributing issue to Israel's declining popularity in the United States. And it's because of people like me that's why that's happening, by the way. And I take pride in that, which is why you should like this channel right now, like this stream, double tap your phone screens, and subscribe right now to American Advocates. But let's move on to another clip here that I have pulled up. And this one, after basically saying the war's not over and we need to go in and get the enriched uranium, he was then, of course, asked about this right here. So let's play this.
Minister, Israel targeted Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon. This is the second front in the war with Iran, much more Israel's than America's. Is it possible, Mr. Prime Minister, that the war with Iran could end, but the war with Hezbollah could continue? That these would be separate and divergent battlefields?
They should be. What Iran would like to do is to say, no, if we achieve a ceasefire here, we want a ceasefire
They do,
here.
clearly.
You know why? Because they want Hezbollah to stay there and continue to torture Lebanon, continue to hold its people hostage, and continue...
Will you accept that?
No, we've said...
Even if President Trump asks you to?
Well, look, he understands what I'm saying. I mean, we want to get rid of that danger to our communities, to our cities. They rocket our cities all the time.
So Trump just understands what he's saying, and so there will never be a challenge from President Donald Trump is essentially the message you can take from there, first and foremost. Secondly, of course, no matter what happens between the United States and Iran, Israel will continue essentially bombing South Lebanon and occupying more of the land. And if you don't believe what I'm saying when it comes to this, then just understand something. Understand that this is all over the internet right now. You can see the videos of it. And Israel doesn't like that there's even videos that exist, which is why they've always claimed it's an accident. But there's been several cases just this year alone of reporters trying to capture Israel's activity and the IDF activity in Lebanon and nearly being bombed for it. In fact, One reporter and her cameraman wound up losing their lives from an accidental Israeli bombing run. Shell, artillery fire is what it was, I believe. So they actively try to discourage this. They don't like the reporting of it. If I remember correctly, they've made it illegal in their country to cover it in that regard. They don't want it on camera, but nevertheless, it gets put. People record. They find ways to record. It's put up online, and we see their strategy. And no, Israel's not going to stop, according to him, even if the Iran war ends with peace, which would be devastating to Israel. And I think he won't allow it to end in peace because it works against him. Lebanon, they will continue to bomb. And he says, well, it's because Iran wants peace and they want a ceasefire because that means Hezbollah gets to stay in Lebanon and torture us. But the bottom line is, of course, Lebanon is a 40% Christian country, and Israel has already airstruck 3 cities that were predominantly Christian cities, and they've leveled those out all the same. Because Israel doesn't care about that. They care about achieving the greater Israel region, which is written into their government and foreign policy, essentially. So they're not going to stop. And he made that very clear there. But beyond that, he then goes in to discuss something that makes me feel just a little bit more vindicated on this channel because the fact of the matter is I said this was happening on this channel. Hang on a second here. Yeah, here we go. There it is. I said this on this channel, and I said this was taking place within the first 2 or 3 weeks of this Iran war taking off. And people said that I didn't know what I was talking about. They said, oh, wow, are you there or something? How do you know? And that is, of course, that's dealing with the topic that is China's involvement. But before this, I want to stop everything. I know there's another $5 super chat tariff from Beckfan. He's giving too much money at this point, man, and you're going to make me feel bad, but I appreciate that. That's your 3rd one of the evening now, or 4th? My goodness. Thank you for balancing out the chat deficit that is no doubt filled with Zionist Israel worshipers right now, and MAGA chuds and Democrat chuds, etc. Probably would be a massive headache to read all of that chat. Good thing they're all beneath me and not worth my time. But a $5 super chat tariff certainly makes whatever you have to say worth my time. We'll read yours right now. He says, disagree that people are tolerating the situation. It's mostly that they see no winning moves. Gen Alpha is starting out checkmated, essentially. Well, tolerance is basically doing nothing about it. Like tolerance, the opposite of tolerance would be doing whatever it takes to change it. So I think you're wrong on that, but I appreciate the $5 super chat tariff nonetheless. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is what Benjamin Netanyahu had to say when he was asked about China's involvement with Iran.
Also happening now, or later this week, a summit between Chinese President Xi Jinping and President Trump. China is the world's largest importer of crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz. We were curious about China's military involvement with Iran. I'd like to ask you about what you know about China providing materially valuable military support to what remains of the Iranian regime. True?
China gave a certain amount of support on particular components of missile manufacturing. But I can't say more than that.
Does that disturb you?
Well, I didn't like it.
It's apparently doing it right now.
Could be. I don't want to speak for China. I don't want to speak also.
But you have eyes and ears on this.
Yeah, well, but I also have a closed mouth when necessary.
So he's very nervous there to talk about the discussion that is China and their involvement with the war, but he does confirm that they have been helping Iran and supplying Iran, as I said they were doing weeks upon weeks ago on this channel. And for some reason, when I said that, I had people in chat calling me a moron. You fucking scum, you goyim scum in the chat. Said I didn't know what I was talking about. China's not supplying Iran. They can't supply Iran. Blah, 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 blah. Trump is fighting this Iran war to hurt China. However, could China support Iran when Trump is clearly crushing China through this Iran war? Which is not a war, by the way. It's just a journey. This is an Iran journey. It's an Iranian journey we're on, and it hurts China. And I had so many fucking stupid goyim in the chat saying that, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, here you go. Confirmed by the man that you probably worship. God's chosen people. God's chosen leader. What a holy man he is. This guy right here. Fall on your knees and worship him, goyim. But he just confirms it. And many people praise Mossad's intelligence. So Yeah, China's been helping Iran. Go figure. It's like I said they would do here on this channel. It's almost as if what I said on this channel has come completely true, and I've been vindicated on almost all of it when I said not only can Trump not hurt China the way that he wants by fighting this Iran war, but in all honesty, it would be smart for China to drag this war out as long as possible by supplying Iran with more supplies to keep it going. And why is that? Well, I broke it down. They treat Iran now as a large proxy that cannot be overcome without a large scale war and massive long term commitment from the United States in the region. This would take years and cost us thousands of lives and billions, if not, well, it would be trillions of dollars, which would very likely burst our economic bubble and send us into complete ruination economically as a country, by the way. And that's why China wants this war to go on. And that's why they're supplying Iran. I also covered China's economic, their economy, which is bad, by the way. China's economy is actually not good. People aren't aware of that. But their yuan has had a hard time maintaining good value, though I wouldn't be surprised if it's doing well now. They're also in what's the equivalent of our 2008 housing market crisis currently, and they have been in that position since last year. So they actually have not as good of an economy as people want to believe for some reason. But I covered their oil reserves and how they have separate oil reserves that are separate from the global oil reserves. And those oil reserves give them an additional 100 to 130 days of oil supply, which means they can outlast every country involved right now when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. Every country's hurting, including China. But China has up to a 130-day additional oil supply, in addition to being able to take some of the global oil reserves as well. And so because of that, it's only in their best interest that this just continues to go on. It makes the United States economically weaker, and China plans to overthrow us when it comes to the economy. We are at an economic war with China, and if we're not careful, we will find ourselves in the losing position of that, especially if we continue to allow this conservative party to be hijacked by neoconservatism and wage all of these stupid fucking foreign wars. But a lot of people do not understand this. And a lot of people are very content to eat up the 5D chess Trump playing slop out there about how Trump is a grandmaster of chess, the smartest man they've ever laid eyes on. And just like everything else he's done, he's doing this war right now to wage war on China. Only problem is, of course, this is hurting us infinitely more, and it's not going to work. And if anything, China can turn the tables on that by using Iran as a proxy, like I said they could. And thank you, Benjamin Netanyahu. I never thought I'd thank him, but I'm going to thank him now for vindicating me and proving once again that you goy scum, are currently on the channel right now with the smartest host on YouTube, and it's not even close. My analysis is untouchable compared to all of the other plebs out there and low IQ, subpar, moderate IQ at best political commentators, reporters, and analysis on YouTube. It's really just, it's not even close. I am miles above all of them, infinitely smarter, which is why you should subscribe right now to this channel and turn on post notifications, so you don't accidentally repeat bullshit-ass narratives that make you look stupid, like Trump's playing 5D chess and he's beating China through Iran, and we're dominating both Iran and China now, and Trump controls the Strait of Hormuz, and regime change is inevitable, and we will crush Iran. We're actually winning. We've won 29 times now. If you don't want to sound stupid, subscribe right now to American Advocates and like the stream. For the love of God, it's free to do. So move those fat fucking thumbs over your phone screens and double tap your phone screen. That's how easy it is to like the stream if you're watching from your phone. It's literally free, and it'll give you the most exercise you've probably gotten all day, you tax cattle bitches. So thank you for that as well in advance. Anyways, I wanted to move on to the next thing here. And please forgive the sniffles, the sore throat. I am sick right now. I am just so dedicated to the cause of speaking and spreading the truth that I will go live while I'm sick. It doesn't matter what I have. I'm live right now. So excuse that. My nose is starting. I don't want to blow my nose while I'm live. I feel like that is horrendous etiquette. But I wanted to move on to the next clip here from him, which is discussing something else that I found very interesting. And this is, of course, what he had to say here when it came to the funding that Israel receives from the United States. So take a listen to this. Taylor Daniel says my thumbs aren't fat. Congratulations. Neither are mine, I feel like. My thumbs are actually kind of petite. If I was Donald Trump, I would be self-conscious about that. But yeah. Well, some of you might not have fat thumbs, which is why you should double tap the phone screen and like the stream so that they don't get fat. Exercise them now. Anyways, here's what he had to say about funding from the United States.
American military aid to Israel has enjoyed bipartisan consensus for decades. It is now $3.8 billion per year and subject to new political scrutiny because of shifting public attitudes about Israel and foreign aid in general. Do you believe it's time for the state of Israel to re-examine and possibly reset its financial relationship to the United States, meaning what the United States provides to Israel on an annual basis?
Absolutely. And I've said this to President Trump. I've said it to our own people. Their jaws drop. But I said, look.
What do you mean? What are you saying?
I want to draw down to zero the American financial support, the financial component of the military cooperation that we have, because we receive $3.8 billion a year. And I think that it's time that we weaned ourselves from the remaining military support.
Can you give me a timetable?
I said, let's start now and do it over the next decade, over the next 10 years, but I want to start now. I don't want to wait for the next Congress. I want to start now.
What?
So interesting that it's his idea that the United States should start weaning ourselves off from supporting this country who's somehow our ally, despite the fact that we really don't get anything from them. So he wants to start it, right? This is just first and foremost, this is a perception power play from him. He sees the writing on the wall. He sees the polls coming out. Every 10 years in age you drop down, the less popular Israel is, starting at age 50. Even the boomers, actually, Israel has lost some support and popularity by a margin of 9% with boomers, which is miraculous because they are the biggest Israel sycophant worshippers out there. They were the completely psyoped generation that believe in the whole God's chosen people bullshit. God loves them, promised land, 3,000 years ago, right? Blah, 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 right? But every age demographic starting at age 50 and under, you go from 50 to 40, from 40 to 30, and under 30 especially. I think hitting record lows now at just 16% support with the under 30 demographic. And I'm in that 30 to 40 age range demographic, which only currently supports Israel at a rate of 25%. And that's really where it's at. He sees the writing on the wall, so now it's his idea. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, Netanyahu, sir, for coming up with this wonderful idea of weaning off of our support and off of our taxpayer dollars, which goes to fund their country for some reason, because it couldn't stand on its own, I guess. I don't know. There's just obviously not enough wealthy Jews out there that could support their country and their homeland. But regardless, that's first and foremost what that is. But also you have to understand what they refer to the United States as, and a lot of people don't really understand this. Hang on a second. What's this Goyim saying in my chat? John Patrick 5402 says, the Bible says Israel will be hated by all nations right before the tribulation. Actually, the Bible says twice in Revelations that those who call themselves Jews and Israel, what is referred to as Israel, it says this twice, will be fake and false. And for some reason, people skip past both those verses in Revelation, and they go right back to the Old Testament with Genesis chapter 12, which they're completely misreading and not understanding. They also skip past the part of the Bible that says the church is now Israel. We've been grafted onto the tree. Why? Because they're cursed people. The Jews were cursed. Jesus spent his entire time down on earth almost, essentially, when he wasn't walking across town spreading the truth. He was battling the Jews, who ultimately turned on him and killed him. So he turned over their money tables in the temple as they were price gouging on sacrifices. And he called the Pharisees whitewashed tombs. They're dead inside completely. He called them sons of vipers, etc. And so people skip over all of that for some reason, and they go right to the part where they're like, well, the Bible says that when everybody turns on Israel, the world will end. Well, what is Israel is the question, I guess. What actually is Israel? Because Israel, as the country we know it, was founded in 1948. It used to be Palestine. They lost that land thousands of years ago, and they were given that land in a sinister plot that was created during the World Wars. That's basically what happens there. You have to do your own research on that when it comes to that kind of history, of course. But is it any wonder, of course, that the CIA was formed in 1947, Israel was formed in 1948? Anyways. that's important to understand. Read Revelation again, which blatantly talks about the Jews that occupy that land and how they would be essentially not real. They'd be fake. Imposters, really, along with that name, that country itself. So just understand that. Dude is full of fake narratives. Wow. Tell me you have an 80 IQ without telling me. Tell me you're an evangelical Christian cuck without telling me. On this channel, I'm a Protestant, but I am a Protestant. I am a Protestant Reformationist. I am a Presbyterian. Okay, I'm not some evangelical tongue-speaking little bitch. I observe the doctrine that is Martin Luther and John Calvin. All right. Anyways, where I was talking about this, you have to understand how Israel recognizes the United States and what they refer to us as. First of all, they think we're incredibly naive and they make fun of us. This is well documented. But on top of that, they refer to us as the golden handcuff, actually. And it's gold because it's valuable. It's a handcuff because we restrain them more than they would like to be restrained. So if you're aware, if you're a noticer, if you actually know what they're doing and you think it's bad now, wait until they feel like they're under no obligation at all to listen to us. Which the lines of that are already being pushed under this current Trump administration, since Trump is essentially what Mark Levin refers to already as the first Jewish president, which of course is not actually definitionally true, but it seems to be more true than we'd like to admit. And so the lines of that are already being pushed. But if you think it's bad now, if you think all of it's bad now, the devastation in South Lebanon where they just destroy entire cities, some of which are predominantly Christian, where they decimate the statue of Christ, and they just blatantly mock Palm Sunday and blow up churches, Christian churches, and they laugh about it, right? If you think it's bad now, Gaza, the West Banks, South Lebanon, who knows what more in the future? Obviously, Egypt and Turkey, they will all fit in there. Wait until they feel like that they don't owe anything to America anymore, meaning that they don't owe us a dignified response to us asking them to restrain themselves. Just wait and see what kind of a face they take on then, you know? And I always wanted to point this out too, actually, on that topic. You notice this with a certain bunch of snake leaders out there. Notice the crooked mouth. And I know this is a weird thing to point out, but I've noticed this with people like Mark Carney up in Canada. And you'll notice this with certain politicians. The mouth is lopsided, and that's really because they do speak out of both sides of their mouth, and the truth will always be revealed. They will always accidentally speak the truth. They will always reveal the truth about themselves unintentionally. And that is really, you notice that, because Mark Carney's a little bit of a twerp and a little bit of a snake too, and he has the same kind of mouth. It's this mouth like this, where it's like, you almost have to force a half smile while you're speaking your lies so that they're at least somewhat believable. Anyways, that was the next one I wanted to discuss. They refer to us as the golden handcuff. Now they want to come off our dollar, right? And there's probably a whole bunch of writing on the wall reasons why, beyond just the polling that suggests that they're more unpopular with Americans than ever before. We see several patterns play out throughout history that are patterns of Jewish usury with a lot of different kingdoms, where they're constantly expelled from kingdoms, right? 109 countries, they say, really kingdoms, because countries are a post-World War I kind of creation. It used to be empires and kingdoms. So they were kicked out of 109 kingdoms, territories. They were kicked out 109 times over the last 2,000 years, and it was a total of over 1,030 times. And what they'll tell you is their propaganda essentially is, after years or decades or however long they manage to pull it off in these kingdoms, empires, or territories, after decades of usury where they achieve political power through copious and egregious misrepresentation, they achieve power in some way, a wealth in some ways, and they exploit these economies, taking the jobs that Christians didn't want to take, is what they call it. Like, you know, nowadays owning a lot of the porn companies and industry, etc. And after they pull this off, and they use the country for all of its resources, and they're inevitably found out, it's almost always too late. And then they're kicked out, and then usually after they're kicked out, a lot of these kingdoms either fall, or they disintegrate, or they erode, or they collapse. And then they point at these countries who they just took everything from, and who they were allowed into initially off of the good faith that they deserve a place to live, and they mock the country, kingdom, territory, empire, etc. And they say, look what happens. Look at the curse that happens when you turn your back on God's chosen people. So could there be something happening right now when it comes to him talking about relying less on the United States support? Could the other writing on the wall be the economic collapse that might be taking place in America soon, where we just won't be valuable to them anyway? And they certain, by the way, after years of supporting them in the form of, like he said, $3.8 billion annually, in addition to all of the extra money that we've spent. Because understand something, $3.8 billion is the baseline. They always find a way to get much, much more than that. For instance, this Iran war. We've currently now spent $73 billion on this Iran war, which was done at the behest of this man and his country. The Iraq war is another great example. We leveraged anywhere between $4 to $6 trillion in additional debt on top of the upfront $2 trillion cost for those Middle East wars of the 2000s at their request, essentially, in the name of their defense. And in some form in the name of retaliation after 9/11, which is a topic I could get into but won't, obviously. And so trillions spent on these wars. After the October 7th attack, we've also additionally sent them anywhere between $21 to $26 billion in addition to the $3.8 billion annually. So when you really factor all of that in, we give them trillions upon trillions of dollars. Many people estimate that we've likely given them anywhere between 19 to $26 trillion is how much we've spent on them. Not given necessarily, of course, but spent on them as a whole. And when you understand and recognize, of course, we're about to hit the $40 trillion marker, that means very likely over half of our national debt in some way, shape, or form can be attributed to them. And now there's a chance that it all collapses. This Iran war is certainly doing us no favors. The global economy is looking like it's in rough shape. If it hits a depression, it could get real bad. If we've jeopardized our petrodollar, like I think we have, and the world starts to wean off of that, then if our petrodollar goes away, boom. Overnight, pretty much, everything bursts economically, and then we're a useless country. And do you think they're going to come to our aid with all the money that they've taken from us over the past several decades? And do you think they're going to go, oh no, our greatest ally has now fallen after years of supporting us? It would only be right if we really kept their country on a lifeline, gave them a lifeline, and tried to help them rebound. Do you think they're going to do that? The answer, of course, is no. They'll look at us as the useless goyim that they believe that we are anyway, and they'll just have nothing to do with us. That's the truth. They won't support us. They'll say they can't, but that's a lie. They just won't support us. Their country's doing fine, by the way. I've covered that before. They profit off of war. So, and that's really what's going on here. We're the golden handcuff that they can't wait to shake off. We are the necessary evil to them right now that keeps their country sovereign, provides the defense they need and the funding that they need. But essentially, the second that they detect it's either going away or that they don't need it, they'll gladly shake us off. And when they do, they're not our ally anymore. They're really not our ally now. They just use us. And the second the jig is up is the second that they reveal their true face, and it won't matter. Lastly, I wanted to cover this. This was the final piece of the interview that I found fascinating here. This was the only hardball question asked really all night by this interviewer on 60 Minutes to Benjamin Netanyahu. Take a listen.
Though, Mr. Prime Minister, there is an impression about you that it is a hunger that people perceive in you for conflict.
That's funny, because for years, I was considered, right before the October 7th, I was considered perhaps the most restrained prime minister in Israel's history. I was conceived as being, politically tough, but militarily very restrained. Obviously, it changed on October 7th because they were going to annihilate us. I didn't think it was just an attack by Hamas. I saw it as it was, an attack by the Iran Axis to try to annihilate us through a noose of death. And I said on the second day of the war, I said, we're going to change the Middle East. We're going to change this condition where they're ganging up on us, thinking they're going to wipe out the one and only Jewish state, wipe out 3,500 years of Jewish history. It's not going to happen.
So much wrong with that, obviously. I mean, just blatant lies being told by Benjamin Netanyahu, of course. And I mean, I don't know if I really have to get into it. You'll never convince the people in chat that don't want to believe what I'm saying. And the people who believe what I'm saying, they probably already know it. But I just wanted to play that because, the bottom line is all of it is a psyop. All of it is a lie. And it's all It's not conspiracies, it's conspiracy singular. You have to understand that. It all started post World War II. It really started before World War One, but especially post World War II. And just again, it's just like just the shameless lying. Yes, he has a hunger for expansion, as does pretty much anybody who finds themselves in the position of Prime Minister of Israel. They believe it's their right. 3,000 years ago was the promise from God. Blah, blah, blah. And so I just found that interesting, but also ironic, funny, straight up lie. Everything about Gaza, even a lie to some degree, of course. We saw the attacks, obviously, and they were horrendous attacks. But if you were paying attention to what Israel was doing before those attacks, you understand why those attacks happened. It was the typical Israel provocation. So, very fascinating clip. But in all honesty, the entire interview from 60 Minutes is worth checking out because it's very revealing. And the real reason why I wanted to play it was the first two clips that I played, where again, despite them being the victim, powerless, junior partner in all of this, he says the war's not over. These were his words. The war is not over. He doesn't, and I'll reiterate again, he doesn't say Trump told me he said the war's not over. Well, I should ask Trump to see what he thinks, or well, I would assume Trump doesn't think the war's over. No, he says it. Benjamin Netanyahu says the war is not over. And then in addition, he says, because you got to get the enriched uranium. And then when asked how you do that, he says, well, you go in and get it, which implies, of course, boots on the ground. And then when asked whose boots would be on the ground, he doesn't specify and doesn't say, well, it would be the IDF or, et cetera, because it won't be. It won't be. So that's what's really the important takeaway there. And really what that leads me into is for the final segment of tonight's show, be sure to like the stream if you haven't already, by the way, as well as subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this. I go live every single night, pretty much, Monday through Friday, especially, in the evening. So subscribe right now. But that leads me into the Iran war update and what we're currently facing right now, which is, of course, day 73. We are now officially on day 73, 27 minutes in. If you're going off Eastern Standard Time, if you're not, then we're wrapping up day 72. $78,319,350,000 spent. Very likely much more than that. And now it doesn't really look like we're seeing any signs of this stopping, unfortunately. I might actually have to come on here and say, and I said there was a chance I'd have to do this, and say I'm wrong. Unfortunately I might be wrong. I predicted that that we would very likely see this wind down and continue to wind down. The ceasefire would hold because it has to, and that we would wind up seeing some sort of a deal worked out. Now, in all honesty, I still think that that's actually the most likely avenue or channel that this whole thing goes down. Trump he's running out of time, and I've explained that in detail on several different prior episodes on this channel, which is, again, why you should subscribe right now, so you're always aware of the reality of the circumstances. By far, I give the best analysis on this channel. It's not even close compared to every other disgusting, stupid, moderate IQ channel out there that covers politics. Trump is running out of time far faster than China, Iran, etc. are, and as a result of that, it has to end. The barriers are there. It either has to end, or Trump has to embrace global depression and possibly U.S. economic ruin to pursue actual victory in Iran. And then at that point, that's still not even a guarantee, the victory part, sadly. But now we're seeing, Iran has responded to the peace deal. They gave their reply to Trump. He's been pissed all day about it, calling it completely unacceptable. Didn't even finish reading it, according to him. Again, I've gone into details why it's playing out this way. Iran has recognized the leverage that they have being the Strait of Hormuz. They've also additionally recognized how powerful controlling the Strait of Hormuz is. It essentially has become Iran's actual nuke. They're not a country that has nuclear warheads. We're not going to ever find that. They didn't develop them. They don't have them. And this war was framed to us as a means of stopping them from creating them or stopping them from using them, but they don't have them. And I don't think they were working towards creating them. That might be a little bit naive on my part, but I do believe that they enriched the uranium up to 60%, but they don't have the means to currently produce them. And Ali Khamenei, the prior holy leader of Iran, who we bombed in Tehran on February 28th and is now dead, had replaced the religious fatwa in his country, an order, essentially, a holy order to never produce nuclear warheads. Now, can they be trusted? No. But regardless, they don't have them. However, despite that, Iran has now stumbled on the Strait of Hormuz in all of this, rather spitefully so at first, by vowing to take control of it and vowing also to never give up control of it. And that's been the real hang-up in negotiations, because Iran seizing control and maintaining control of it and charging a toll for passage through it is a very clear loss on the global stage for America. So Trump can't allow it, but Iran refuses to budge from it. Moreover, locking down the Strait of Hormuz and hurting the global economy the way Iran has done so in the process has made a startling revelation. It's a startling revelation in this war now that Iran can hijack and control the global economy in a way that is so devastating that it is in some ways, I would argue, even better than them having a nuke. Because unlike a nuke, which targets one region and devastates it, and is also expensive to make and expensive to maintain and hold, controlling the Strait of Hormuz is relatively cheap. In fact, it can generate a profit if they can start charging a toll in the region. In addition, unlike a nuke, which targets one region, the Strait of Hormuz, which they now control and can shut down seemingly at any time, impacts the entire world. And pretty quickly, I might add. We're going to be hitting $5 a gallon national average gas very quickly. The oil markets are going to wind up going very volatile as our strategic oil reserves begin to start running dry in the next 2 weeks, if not less than that now, which means our economy and our inflation is going up more and more. We saw 3.5% inflation in March. April's report will no doubt be even worse than that. Our cost of living is increasing. Quality of life is dropping drastically here in the United States. And it's now baked in to the point of where the rest of 2026 will be an economic wash for President Donald Trump and his Trump economy, which is really set to begin. We're supposed to be in the process of now turning into the Trump economy, I would say in June, actually. That would be the 16th month mark. And the 16th month mark is traditionally where I would insist that at 16 months into an administration, that is officially what that current president's economy is now being felt as opposed to the prior president's economy. And what are we going to get under this Trump economy as it begins to be ushered in over the next several weeks? Higher inflation, higher price of living, higher gas, a volatile oil market, a global economy that is now being hijacked by the Iranian terrorists. And so all of this now gives Iran tremendous power. And it's relatively cheap, first and foremost, for them to threaten the Strait of Hormuz in a way that forces it to be shut down. Ballistic missiles are cheap to produce. Drones are even cheaper. And that's really all they need, in combination with a couple of speedboats and drone-piloted suicide boats and 1 to 3 mini-subs, which they've already built and have been maintaining. And then in addition to that, controlling it is still relatively cheap. And when you begin the process of charging a toll for it, you now make a profit off the region, a very large profit. If they can get away with charging a $1 million toll per tanker that passes through, that will essentially produce or it's a $2 million toll. That will wind up netting them a $100 billion annual profit, which is 3 times the amount of money they spend currently on their military budget in their country. And it's about 33% of what their total GDP is. This is why they won't give it up. And because of that, once again, Trump cannot exit the region yet. He cannot save face in what is now a very obvious military quagmire at the hands of the Trump administration. And so all of that is to say, the Iran war, in addition to the statements we've received from Bibi Netanyahu that I just went over the past 30 or so minutes of, where Bibi Netanyahu says the war is not over because of the enriched uranium, the war is also not over because Iran refuses to give up the Strait of Hormuz. And we don't have a great answer to that other than full-out war, which would involve us sending in our naval fleet into the strait, which jeopardizes them. As Iran has proven they have the ability to damage and possibly sink ships already, they did that all throughout last week, targeting 4 ships successfully in under 48 hours. So we'd have to then send boots on the ground on the shoreline of Iran and go in about 200 miles deep into their country in order to ensure that they could no longer launch ballistic missiles or drones at our Navy that would now be entering the Strait of Hormuz and forcing it back open. We would then have to demine the Strait of Hormuz in the middle of it, where they have been laying mines. They've been doing that. They've been tripling down on laying mines. They did that last weekend by sending in their speedboat force. This will take a lot of time. And then, of course, we will have to convince the insurance companies that it's completely safe. And the insurance companies are going to be very slow to respond to that. In fact, the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait was hijacked by the Houthis, the Iran's allies in West Yemen, and that was almost 2 years ago where that took place. And even now, fast forwarding to now, where the Houthis have been eliminated as a threat, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in the Red Sea is still only at 75% occupancy and passage when it comes to the ships, because some insurance companies are still so skeptical that they won't back the ships trying to pass through it even now, almost 2 years later. So this will have such lasting effects, and Iran has recognized this. This is the genie out of the bottle that I warned about week 1 of this war, where I said there are going to be permanent changes as a result of this. Now, all that being said, we're getting this narrative from President Donald Trump. He just said this today. I'm going to play this short 17-second clip from him right now. This is what he's currently telling the American people.
Now we have a country that's respected all over the world. So think of it. We were a dead country a year and a half ago, and now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. There's nobody close, and our military is great. We are kicking ass.
So we're the hottest country anywhere in the world, and we're respected by everyone, says President Donald Trump, who, through starting this useless, senseless Middle East war, has not only made our economy much worse and increased our cost of living here at home, which is it's the opposite of the golden age, but he's also continually damaged our reputation as a country and our military credibility through very, very poor planning and poor military strategy. This is why, day 73 now, we've gotten no concessions from Iran, not complete surrender like he demanded week 1. We've gotten nothing back. We don't have their enriched uranium. We haven't destroyed their nuclear facility, seized or destroyed their centrifuges. We haven't affected regime change, though we decapitated the regime. It grew back predictably so. In addition to that, Iran went scorched earth and began targeting and striking all of their neighbors, many of whom we consider to be our Persian Gulf allies, and we have contracts with, and we do business with, and we vow to protect and provide peace for. They have now sustained damage. We saw that last week when Iran struck Fujairah, successfully targeting the Emiratis' oil industry there with 2 drones, 2 $50,000 drones. That's all it took. And then in addition to that, the Strait of Hormuz is now closed, which is something that it wasn't before February 28th. It was actually wide open and free for all to pass through. And we can't get it back open. And we've been saying that we're going to get it back open, only we haven't been able to. And the blockade is just a double blockade. It's now double closed. That's all that Trump has been able to do. And everything we've done thus far has really not succeeded. But yet, we are now the most respected country because of him. And we're in a golden age, despite the fact that gas is about to hit $5 a gallon national average, which was the last defense, really, from an economic standpoint, that MAGA chud retards had when it came to defending Trump's actions. When gas hit over $4 a gallon, all they had to say was, well, it was worse under Biden. Well, it's about to not be worse under Biden. It's about to be equal. And if we stay in this war into June, it'll be even worse. In fact, if we hit June and we're still in this war, the projection is we'll hit $7 a gallon or $6.50 a gallon national average. That'll be officially worse than the gas prices we saw under Joe Biden. But yeah, so then he says that we're in the golden age and our military's been incredible. Well, our military men are always incredible, but the strategy in the region has been horrendous overall. In addition to that, I want to remind everybody, 73 days and counting, and now 61% of Americans call this war a mistake, with 55% of the Republicans now also saying that the reason for the gas prices being so high is Trump's fault. Iran has rejected the peace deal, and Trump himself has admitted that the current ceasefire deal there is on massive life support. This all being said, of course, after Benjamin Netanyahu on 60 Minutes over the weekend said that the Iran war is not over. So what does this mean? Well, midterms are approaching, and we have nothing to show for this yet. It's been a complete quagmire, and Trump has to find a way to be able to claim victory in a way that is done obviously so. So does this mean that we're going to ramp up tensions in the Middle East? That's really the question here. In all honesty, the dilemma right now is Trump is set to meet President Xi Jinping in China this Wednesday, and he seems really hell-bent on meeting in Beijing with Xi Jinping. He seems to be prioritizing that meeting. And obviously, we know that China is not thrilled by our actions. Iran is technically an ally to China. They're a BRICS nations ally member. And so I think Trump, because he wants to meet Xi, I think that very likely we're not going to see any escalation tonight or tomorrow because he wants to meet Xi in Beijing on Wednesday. But after that, do we ramp it up in Iran? Do we see a bombing run campaign? Or do we see a full-scale war waged? There seems to be a good chance of that. And both of those options are obviously disasters, but that's really where we're at right here. Hey, good to see Cole Ferguson back in here. I have not seen you in a long time. Good to see you back here, man. But that's really what's going on here. Trump is definitely, according to reports even, he is mulling over restarting the war in Iran soon. Actually, I have this CNN article here. It says Trump has become increasingly frustrated with how Iran is handling negotiations and is more seriously considering resuming major combat operations than at any point in recent weeks. It says two specific frustrations are driving him: the continued closure of the Strait of Hormuz and what he sees as Iran's internal divisions preventing meaningful nuclear concessions. Now, every step of the way, Iran has declined to discuss the nuclear facility and their nuclear program, saying and insisting that Trump must remove his blockade from the strait before any such conversations can take place. And Trump, of course, has declined to remove the blockade, which I have said from the start was a strategic mistake. Not the blockade. I actually thought the blockade was a good idea, but when I said it was a good idea, I said it would be a short-term good idea. And that if it wasn't effective quick enough, and that if Trump couldn't build a strategy around it fast enough, that it would actually work in counter opposition to our goals in the Middle East, which it now is doing. And Iran, during the ceasefire, offered President Donald Trump the opportunity to reopen the Strait of Hormuz entirely, stating that they would remove their blockade on their end if we did ours. And this is where Trump, unfortunately, is not playing chess like everyone says he is, and instead, like I say, he's playing poker, a game that has some strategy, but most relies on bluffs. Trump decided to bluff, unfortunately, and said, nope, you will remove your blockade, but we're keeping ours. And of course, Iran said no. So now it's still double blockaded, and the global economy continues to suffer, and it's without a doubt in global recession territory already, but could now enter a global depression if this war goes on for 2 to 3 more months even. So that's first and foremost. Now, ironically, we've been fed the propaganda that the Iranian country and government is splitting, and we've been told, well, they're on the verge of civil war. Their politics, there's a fracture and divide so bad that they're going to fracture and split. And I've covered on this channel with actual pretty much proof that that's not the case. And I've explained the very logical reasons why, mainly because Mojtaba Khomeini is the son of Ali. He's alive now. He's their new holy leader, and the IRGC responds directly to him. And the IRGC is the muscle of the country. So no matter what the Iranian politicians may say publicly, it's the IRGC that calls the shots. We've seen that with the Strait of Hormuz closure. We saw that with the strikes on Fujairah, targeting the Emiratis' oil supply. The 4 ships that were struck in the Strait of Hormuz in under 48 hours, all IRGC. And in addition to that, even the politicians that many of the people would point to who are in the know and say, well, see how they have a different narrative than the IRGC. They've officially made their statements that they're willing to die for the cause as martyrs. And beyond that even, they've sided with the IRGC in their parliament in Iran, drafting legislation and approving it and voting on it in an approval to take control of the Strait of Hormuz, to create what is now being called the Persian Gulf Port Authority, to begin charging a toll for passage through the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian parliament sided with the IRGC. There is no divide. They're not divided. They're not on the verge of civil war. That's not going to happen. They are united against their stand against Israel and the United States. So that's important to understand. But what's ironic there, we're being fed that propaganda while reports are coming in that the Trump administration is now openly split over this war. It says some officials are advocating for a tougher strategy, including targeted strikes to further weaken Iran's negotiating position. I've covered at length why that's a bad idea on this channel. It's because Iran has demonstrated that they have enough force output to wreak havoc on the Persian Gulf and in the Middle East in general. They proved it last week. Like I said, I just named all the targets that they took out. In addition to the leaked satellite imagery that we've now received that the Pentagon and Hegseth originally requested wouldn't be put out. It was leaked. Our military bases have sustained severe damage from Iranian strikes. The one base has $1 billion in damages on it, and several other bases and targets have also been destroyed much more than what we thought Iran could do when it came to force output. And all of that is to say, the reason why striking Iran is a bad idea is because Iran, like they promised they would control the Strait of Hormuz and have every intention of seemingly following through on that, Iran promised also at the start of this war that if a second bombing run campaign was carried out on their country, that they would do what they did at the beginning, and that they would target the Emiratis, the Saudis, Qatar, Bahrain, and that they would rain down hellfire and fury on all of their civilian targets and resources, infrastructure, power plants, bridges, like we've done to them. They've vowed to do to all of them. And these countries are our Middle East allies, who we've taken trillions of dollars from, by the way, for peace and protection's sake. We were supposed to be providing that. We've taken trillions of their dollars. And Iran has vowed, if we strike them again, that they will target power plants, liquid natural gas fields, oil industry, desalinization, the process of converting salt water to drinkable tap water, which is fundamental for the Middle East. That's what they have vowed to do. So striking them is a bad idea. Now, the administration, it says, is split, with some saying, some moving towards that idea and saying we should strike them. Others are urging continued diplomacy, it says. And the Iranian division frustration is the diplomatic driver, which is true. So the negotiators in Pakistan can't deliver because the IRGC won't authorize the concessions, and Mojtaba Khamenei won't override the IRGC. They work unanimously together. They work, yeah. So that's important to understand. I just explained that. But that's what we're getting. That's the reports that we're getting. So it's ironic that we've been fed the propaganda that Iran is going to split and fracture any day now, when very clearly they're not. And it's actually the Trump administration now who recognizes just how serious of a mistake this war is and how much of a quagmire this all is. And now they're trying to come up with the proper solution and how to handle it. Now, if you've been a subscriber on this channel, then you've recognized that I've gone live every single day since the start of this war, and before that even, and covered what Trump's options really are. And all of them are bad. Straight up, every single option is bad. But there's one least worst option that Trump could take. It would just require, of course, negotiating with Iran rather than demanding their surrender. So that's where we're at on that. Trump's flying out to Beijing. And so we don't really know. The betting market odds right now are split on whether or not we'll see a strike on Iran before Trump arrives in Beijing or after. The thought process is, if Trump wants to arrive in Beijing with some leverage, or what he perceives could be leverage anyway, we don't know if it could be or couldn't be, depending on how Trump negotiates with Xi, which we don't know because it's behind closed doors. But if he wanted to arrive with leverage, he'll strike Iran now and say, we're going to crush them. And he'll try to weaponize that to get Xi Jinping to help in the diplomacy aspect in the negotiations with Iran, and try to weaponize that to get Xi more on our side. Because at the end of the day, China eventually does want the Strait of Hormuz reopened, even if they want to take advantage of this currently, and it's in their best interest to weaken our economy, which is what I said from the start they would do. But in the long run, China do want this open too. So that's one option, and that's the option. I think 52 to 58% of the betting markets that I looked at is in favor of happening. They believe we'll bomb them before Trump arrives in Beijing. However, anywhere between 42 to 48% think that Trump will wait until after the Beijing meeting with Xi ends and Trump is back home before we bomb them, which would mean this weekend, of course. And that's a timeline that seems to make actually a little bit more sense, because Trump likes to conduct these missions over the weekend when the markets are closed, so that it doesn't look as bad up front. And that's the option I would go with. If we're going to see an escalation and we're going to see the war in Iran resume, then I would say I would assume that Trump is going to be the kind of guy that doesn't want to enter Beijing with hostilities taking place in the Middle East with one of China's allies. It seems like this negotiation, the way Trump talks about it, I shouldn't say negotiation, meeting with Xi Jinping in Beijing is important for some reason. We're not sure why. But if it's that important, then Trump wants it to be as the least tension. He wants the least tension there as possible. So that's what I would assume. I would assume if we're going to strike Iran again, and I hope we don't, in all honesty, I want this war to end peacefully through negotiation. But if it's going to happen, I would assume Friday or Saturday. So we'll wait and see on that, especially because a reporter has asked Trump, actually. Now, here's what some people are. Here's why the betting market odds are a little bit higher, actually. for him striking them before he goes to Beijing, because apparently a reporter asked Trump today if he plans to respond to Iran before leaving for China. And his answer was, I'm not going to talk to you about that, obviously. I'm just not going to talk. See, I'm sick right now, but I can still do the Trump voice pretty well, I think. I'm not going to say. I'm not. Obviously, what a stupid question. What a stupid question. Who are you with? Who are you with? CNN, sir. That explains it. What a stupid question. They hire such stupid people for CNN. I am not going to talk to you about that, obviously. He was pressed again, apparently, and he said, I don't want to talk to you about that. So that's interesting. Now, we're at war, so... But, you know, Trump hasn't been shy to make those threats when he feels like it's the kind of threat that could be made to scare Iran, possibly. So the fact that he's keeping it tight-lipped right now is very interesting. And that's probably why the betting markets are more in favor of him bombing them before he meets with Xi. But I personally think if it's going to happen, and again, it shouldn't happen. It's a terrible idea to bomb Iran again. Terrible. For the sake of our allies, the Emiratis and the Saudis, and Israel, in all honesty, if you care about them. For the sake of our allies, we should not do it. But if we're going to, probably this weekend. And that's what I've got to say about that. Anyways, I'll leave you guys off with that. That's pretty much it for what I had planned for tonight. Be sure to subscribe right now to American Advocates for more content like this. I go live every single night. Usually not this late. Sorry to my moderators if they're still down there. I didn't mean to cost you guys some more sleep. Lifeguard, if you got work in the morning, dude, I hope you just went to bed. Fuck me in this situation. It's my fault for going live so late. Usually I try to aim to go live 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes I'm an hour late, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. Today I was 2 hours late, but I own businesses in real life on the side. I'm a little bit sick and slow today, and I had a lot of work to do today, so I just really... Lifeguard says I'm okay. That makes me feel a little bit better. Thank you. So yeah, I was a little bit late tonight, but be sure to subscribe right now for more content like this. Turn on post notifications so that no matter what time I go live, you're always notified. Or when I post my mostly daily videos, which is I've been trying to post a video clip from each show at around 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern every single day. And when I do, please click on those, give them full watch time, like the video, and comment on them. It does help the video perform better in YouTube's algorithm. Like the stream if you haven't already as well. Double tap those phone screens. Would appreciate that as well. And I'll take a look at a few chats here. Gary Daniels says, this ponytail man has harsh truth. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I know the truth is harsh, but we got to put it out there because when we speak the truth, then we can actually come up with the real solutions that we need to come up with to fix our predicaments, you know? I get called abrasive sometimes, but I take that as a compliment because abrasive literally means polish, to polish. We got to start polishing stuff. Oh, see, I'm sick, so I'm drinking. Oh, you can't see it. Lemon, ginger, pineapple, and cayenne. Brutal. But I've been drinking it for a few weeks now. You actually get used to it. It tastes just like a little spicy lemonade now. It's so good. Oh, yeah. Get to feeling better. Hey, Howard, good to see you in here, man. Get to feeling better. Thank you, Howard. Howard, as a 40... Actually, while I have you, Howard, because I rarely get to interact with you live. As a 40-year super smart military veteran, being you, an Army targeting officer, this guy. What rank were you, by the way, Howard? That's what I'd like to know first. But with that level of experience, Howard, what do you think about my analysis tonight on Iran? And what do you think? Do you think we're more likely to strike them and go to war with them again this week? That's really what I want to know. Because Howard says I'm smart, and I took it as such a compliment. I was so flattered. He's like, I wish a guy like you would have been on our strategy team. I'm not that smart. Howard's the smart guy here. And it would be, if you can say it in the chat, Howard, if you're still here, I would appreciate knowing. Because I would be more inclined to take your opinion on it as more solid than my analysis as a normal, regular 30-something-year-old, American guy. Do more Trump voiceover. I'm not your jester presto. I'm not your clown on demand. You want a Trump voiceover, you can pay your super chat tariff down below. You can pay your super chat tariff, you goyim scum. And I'll read any super chat. That's such a grift. I'm just playing, of course. There's no obligation to donate. No obligation. I actually did decent today with the super chats because of some of my loyal viewers here. Thank you guys again for your super chats. Beck Fan, Mark. Who's the other one? Shit. Who's my other super chat donor? Oh, yeah, One Sheepish Wolf. Appreciate you too, if you're still here even. I'm waiting to see if Howard was able to respond. He might have missed it. Be wise. BB's face gives me the creep. Such a demon-infested freak. That tiny hat's been kicked out of 109 countries. Let's make it 110. A good, even number. Yeah, pretty true. Bro, the Trump imitations are the best, says MMMM. Good to hear, MMMM. And also, be wise. I pointed this out. I don't know if you're just tuning in now. I've been live for like an hour and 45, but I know it's a weird thing to point out, but I've noticed this with some snaky politicians. Mark Carney up in Canada has a similar mouth. It's a lopsided mouth. It's almost like talking both sides of your mouth and lying a lot and putting on a fake face. Almost causes a little bit of a, of a side mouth here. It's like you're talking out of this side, almost like you got to force a little bit of a smile. Mark Carney has the same. The longer you live, you really do see the same eyes and the same. It's called your countenance, actually. If you believe in the Bible, if you don't, whatever. But if you believe in the Bible, it refers to this as your countenance, and it says a man's countenance. You will be known. What you do in your life will reflect in your countenance. It's called, and it's not quite. It's not that your countenance is not quite your physical face, though that's affected by it. But your countenance is like this spiritual face that you have. And there's things that you can detect in somebody like that. And it's in their eyes, truly it is. It's in their eyes, it's in the shape of everything about it. And everybody's countenance, I do believe that. It does change throughout the course of your life, depending on how much good versus evil you do. You think, David Geisler, you think I'm funny? Funny how? Funny how? You think I'm funny? Like I'm a clown? Like I amuse you? I love Pesci. Joe Pesci's the man. I grew up, my first Joe Pesci movie as a kid was Home Alone, though, so I wasn't exposed to Joe Pesci in the mobster roles with the super foul mouth. And now it's even funnier watching Home Alone because every time he's a victim in Home Alone, he goes, frigga, sugar, frigga, sugar, frigga. And it's like, oh, that's what that is. He's basically swearing, but in a kid's movie. He's swearing like he does in all of his other movies as a mobster, but in a kid's movie. Funny how? Funny like I amuse you? Like I'm your clown? Oh, there's Howard Clegg. Oh, Howard, I don't know if you heard my question or not, man. I just wanted to know what you thought about this. Oh, he does say this. He says, Chief Warrant Officer 4. He will strike again. Ah, damn it. Oh, see, I know it. I feel that in my soul. Dude, I feel like, I've been, again, not to toot my own horn in front of somebody who actually knows like you do, but the arrogance is almost part of the character on this channel, I would say, just to piss off the haters. I'm not as arrogant in real life. I do it when I know I have haters in chat, but I will say my analysis has been good, and you've said it's been good. And I think it's just my subconscious desire of wanting this to end is taking over when I think you'll agree, like the time constraints are crazy right now, as are the resource constraints. So it's like, it can't keep going on unless Trump is willing to sacrifice it's like sacrificing the world. Like, it would just be like, oh, well, most countries will enter a famine, but at least Iran will not have nukes, which they didn't have anyway. But now they won't have them for sure. And a lot of people are going to go hungry. But dying of hunger is better than dying instantly and being vaporized from a nuke that Iran never had. But that's like what we're dealing with if this goes on for even a few more months. Like, God forbid we hit July. If we hit July, the United States begins to hit its fucked territory, pardon my language. Like, that's crazy. He will strike again. Resupply and amount. We are burning. That's true too. Yeah, the resupply. Yeah. The reports on that are also alarming for sure. I mean, I know we have a lot. We can produce endlessly on the low level ammunition, the low level armaments and munitions, but the high end supplies and stuff and the expensive stuff, the JASM, the JASM rockets, I believe they are, the Patriot interceptors. These are expensive, and we don't produce a lot of them on an annual basis. And they take a long time. Some of them take a while to produce too, and we burned through thousands of these. I think, what is it? Which one is it that we burned through 1,000 Patriot interceptors or 1,100, and we only produce 60 of them a year or something like that? So yeah, not good. Not good because, again, as I said on one of my prior episodes, China's now eyeing up Taiwan, which was something I also said was very likely to happen. Stop everything. $1.99 super chat tariff from Venom Dragon 8883. $1.99. He says, here's $2. Sorry for trolling MAGA in chat. Good night. No worries, dude. I am a conservative, but I'm not a MAGA cultist. And so no need to apologize at this point. You know, if this was 2016, I would have been pissed at you. So much so you would have never wanted to donate to me. Because what I saw as MAGA forming as a coalition back then is very obviously just a cult right now. And Trump is the leader of it. And how dare anybody criticize him? You must worship him, the 9D chess player that he is, who's infallible. It's honestly, it makes me sick too, man. So you do your thing down there in all honesty. I'm not a MAGA cultist. I don't mind them being trolled. They need to be trolled. They're a bunch of dorks. Ugh, spicy lemonade. Wow. Howard, we don't get into that. I get a feeling he doesn't want to share, so I don't ask. Oh, I'm not sure what was being asked. Sorry, I don't mean to be slow here if anybody else has anything to say. Hey, what happened to our mod Glenn, says MMMM? I don't know. Glenn dropped off. He'll be back though. Glenn is such an OG. Glenn is such an OG that he was he used to watch me when I was a video game streamer on Twitch. I used to be paid on Twitch to video game stream, but I only did that for a couple months in all honesty. Twitch is not for me. I don't like the platform. It's full of censorship. It's way too liberal. And I just, it was only a matter of time before I said something on there that got me banned, I felt like. And I don't play video games as much anymore. I'll still play like a Age of Empires or a Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds. I like real-time strategy games. I played Battlefront 2 for May the 4th be with you. And I do wish I had more time for video games, but I own some businesses on the side in real life, and I do this, and so I just don't have as much time. But Glenn was a viewer back then even. I used to play this game called Dave the Diver on Twitch. Fun game. And I'll probably, if I can turn YouTube into full time and I own my businesses on the side, then I'll probably actually do a secondary channel where I do live stream for video games again. But for now, I just don't. But Glenn's been around for a long time. He'll be back. He may come and go, but he'll be back. By the way, mods, is my language okay? I'm being pretty rude to some pretty stupid people, says Venom. You're fine, Venom, probably. Don't violate YouTube terms of service, but that's not because I want that to be adhered to. I am a free speech absolutist, pretty much. I tolerate pretty much almost anything for the most part. Just not spam, or just don't spam the chat, really, is the main rule here. Don't spam the chat, or if it gets to a point, there's been certain people here we've yelled at for going way too far with the day-to-day harassment of people, where it's like every single day they come in chat and they say the same shit to the same person. We wouldn't tell that would be harassment in my opinion, and that's not what is covered under free speech. But otherwise, as a social conservative, I would be a hypocrite to say that you can't say what you want down there, right? So you're good to go. Stop everything again. Another $2 super chat from Venom Dragon. Thank you again, man. I appreciate you. He says, I voted Trump in 2016. I'm far from conservative now. I understand, dude. I'm still, listen, I'll tell it to you like this. my values are conservative, but to align myself with this abomination of a GOP party, it's almost impossible, dude. We gotta when I get 5,000 subscribers on this channel, I'm gonna bring on memberships on this channel. Provided YouTube doesn't demonetize this channel again. Hopefully, let's hope we get to that 5,000 subscriber mark. I can bring on memberships. I'm gonna name the membership club for this channel a party idea. We got to be like the separatist restoration party, really. So that's what the membership's going to be called on this channel. It's going to be called the Separatist Restoration Party, because I just feel like separating. Like, we got to go the separatist route, honestly. I have conservative values. I want to see those values actually fulfilled in our government, but they're not by this current GOP. They're just not. We're just not even represented by our elected officials. It's all big donor money now. It's foreign influence. It's an abomination. And it really does tarnish the idea to a lot of people of what the Republican Party is supposed to be, really. You know, our society is in shambles now. We're facing so many social and cultural issues. Fiscally, it's always been the conservatives fiscally, where, you know, even the Democrats were almost like unintentionally admitting it in 2024 when Trump was announced president-elect. They recognized that this was at least supposed to be the truth then. The statuses were, I hope cheaper gas and cheaper eggs and cheaper groceries were worth it when it came to women's rights now being on the line, they thought, right? They were talking about like abortion. So they admit it even, really. When they're angry, they admit that the idea is the conservatives are supposed to conserve and they're supposed to be fiscally more responsible. And we're not even getting that. How much money have we spent on this Iran war now? $70-something billion. Trillions for all the Middle East wars under Bush, started under Bush. You know, how much money was sent overseas by Republicans? We had Reagan. We had H.W. Bush, all of this, you know, and the Democrats are not saints about this either, and they're reckless spenders in different ways that destroy our country. But, like, you know, we haven't had a true conservative in office in probably over 100 years, in all honesty. It's all been a shit show, at least in over 80 years. So, you know, the real good conservative presidents, unfortunately, were in the 1800s. Those are the ones that were like, hey, fuck these taxes. You know, that's what I want a conservative president to say. Fuck these taxes. That's conservative. That's what conservative's supposed to be. Fuck taxes. Like, where's that at? And neither side will say that, because both sides recognize we're supposed to be the tax cattle that funds their corruption. It's disgusting. I'm having a hard time with just the stupid idiots, and I still tolerate them mostly. Well, hey, you know what? They're useful. They're the useful cattle in chat too, Lifeguard, so I appreciate you. As long as they don't spam or harass one specific targeted user over and over, I'm okay with it. I mean, I figured it would piss dirty. You're okay, Venom. That's fine. I don't care. You're fine. I'm good with that. Agree, says Spartacus. I know you agree too, Spartacus. Yeah, I think you know, Venom says he voted Trump in 2016, but wouldn't call himself conservative. Spartacus, I feel like you're probably on a similar wavelength. You're one of my moderators. I'm on a similar wavelength that right now. Like, there's just a lot of work we got to do we got to save this country. It's just going to take a lot. So Venom says, anyway, it's late. Y'all have a good night. I definitely disagree with a lot of your opinions, but you deserve a good faith disagreement. Well, thank you, Venom. I still appreciate that, man. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're a moderate, clearly you're probably a much more moderate Democrat if you voted for Trump at all. So we probably are aligned a lot more than I would be with some other people. So appreciate you. Appreciate your support, the super chats. You have a good evening, man. Thank you so much. Sick from the Kush. Hey, Sick from the Kush. He says, how did he start the stream? Was it like a recent news cap? How big of a tariff do I have to get? A 2-week summary of the beef? Oh, goodness, dude. Oh, man, I'm about to wind down this stream, so there's no amount of money right now that could get me to give you a 2-week recap. I need to actually do a little bit of work and then go to sleep. And I'm really sick. I'm getting sick right now, so I'm so dedicated I go live even while I'm sick. But I started off the stream talking about Virginia and Spanberger, and then I went into Bibi Netanyahu's 60-minute interview, and then did an Iran war update. Self-awareness, says Lifeguard. Yeah, I've seen you do that before, but I've seen the chats that you time out. I'm mostly okay with it. I think tax cattle promote that, says Gary. It's true though, Gary. That's what we really are. That's really what we are. There are a lot of lies about a lot of different beliefs. It's important to talk to people without the titles of we want to know what people believe in. No yeah, see, I like that. Why? I don't even know what you've been chatting throughout the entirety of the show. Why? But no apologies needed. That's what within your constitutional rights. I like that. That's where we need to be at too. You know what? Freedom of speech in the First Amendment protects the speech you don't like. That's the truth. And so long as you're not using your freedom of speech to call for violence or for targeted harassment, then it's pretty much all good in this chat. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal. Y'all need to take Islam seriously. We do. I have a whole playlist dedicated to Dearborn, Michigan. Not a fan. Not a fan of Islam. Have you seen Redeemed Zoomer's channel about this reconquista of Protestant churches? Not yet. No. I'll take a look at that if you remind me to, Beck fan. We take it seriously as a threat. It is sick from the Kush. Islam's a threat. Listen. Right now, I'm against this war, and I'm also, one of the people speaking out against the Zionist influence in our government. I think that is currently our biggest issue. When you understand what the Muslims are in that region, which are a threat, but they're also the broomstick for Israel and for the Zionists, and they have been that way for quite a while. So they are a problem, in my opinion, but they're not actually our biggest problem yet. I don't like Dearborn, Michigan. That needs to be solved. I would solve that immediately if I was Trump. That's an issue. That's a Muslim colony, and that should not exist in the United States. And Dallas is becoming an issue too, but they are not actually our biggest issue yet in this moment right now in time. So anyways, that's all I've got to say about that. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We're at the 2-hour mark now. This shouldn't have even have gone on this long. I wanted to make this a fast stream, but I get to rambling and chatting. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate all the super chat tariffs today. Helped balance out the chat deficit for sure. Thanks to all the new subscribers. Subscribe right now to American Advocates if you haven't already. Make sure post notifications are turned on. I go live every single night. I aim for 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, but sometimes I'm an hour late. But I'll be back here live tomorrow. Like the stream if you haven't already. And yeah, glory to America. God bless the USA, and God bless all of you. I will see you guys back here tomorrow. Thank you to my moderators for the mod work and for my super chatters once again for the support. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye-bye.